Hello, friend. Before we jump into today's episode, I do want to put out a warning. We are going to be discussing childhood cancer and dealing with the loss of a child. Now, if this is a topic that you are not comfortable jumping into, please feel free to turn this off. Specifically, we are going to be talking about how this family created a nonprofit that focuses on helping other families who are currently in the battle of childhood cancer in their family. Whatever stage they're at, it's how this nonprofit comes in and offers them joy and hope. So feel free to turn this episode off or keep listening if you feel like you are in a place to do so. Either way, be blessed, and I will be talking to you soon. Hello and welcome to One Called Mama. I am your host, Sam, and I am so thankful that you decided to join us today. So we have another guest today. Her name is Jennifer, and I am so thrilled and honored to have Jennifer on the show. She has an amazing testimony, an amazing story to share, and I'm not going to get in the way. I want to jump right in. So Jennifer, thank you so much for being on the show today. Can you share a little bit about yourself before we jump in?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jennifer Johnson. I have 4 kiddos, and yeah, we have a 15-year-old that is, doing the 15-year-old thing. And then I have 2 stepsons from a former marriage. They're 28 and 24. And then our youngest daughter, Ellie, was 4 years younger than Catherine, our 15-year-old. And she passed away when she was 3 back in 2017. So that's kind of my family. And I started an organization with a great team in 2019 in honor of Ellie after she passed away. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So Ellie, the organization that you founded, it's a nonprofit. It's called Brave Like Ellie, and so talk to me about what your organization does. What is at the heart of your organization? Let's learn about that.
Yeah. So our organization serves families that have kids affected by cancer. We say affected because they may have cancer currently, or they may have had it and be in any stage of that journey. So we support the families through what we call Brave boxes. So they're basically gift packages that come in a variety of types. And really, we started it because we found ourselves in a season that we never expected. Ellie got cancer when she was 2, and we knew nobody that had cancer. And so it was just completely foreign to us. And when it happened, it just started, and then it's like, here we go, you're in it. And so we were just loved on in so many ways, tangibly, intangibly, by people we knew, people we didn't know. And so we just always knew we wanted good to come from her life. The hope was obviously that she would be here with us on earth and healthy and healed and living with us. And that's not our story. But we do know that she's healed. She's in heaven. She's living the best life. And I look forward to joining her again one day when that time happens.
Yeah, of course. So, so when, I can't even imagine, I know any parent can't even imagine what going through that is like. How did you come to the decision to start this organization? Because to me, that says volumes. I think we can choose to let grief destroy us, or we can choose to let grief change us for the better and do its work for good. And I feel like you chose the latter. How did that look like? What did that look like in the beginning when y'all started the organization? Walk me through that process.
Yeah. I mean, I think just the word that came to mind as you were just talking is messy, raw. Like she passed in 2017. We started the organization in 2019. And never in my life did I think I would start a nonprofit. Never did, never did I think obviously my child would have cancer and then pass away from it. So, I mean, it was, I don't know, you hear the word grassroots, and I never really knew what that meant because I wasn't in the nonprofit world. But, we're now in our 6th year, and it was really just, I don't know, it was this mix of like, I don't know, beautiful mess comes to mind. It was this mix of like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I
Yeah.
can't not do it. Like,
Yeah.
I just had this, like, I don't know. Like it's thinking back now too to how different things are, how different my motivation is and those sort of things. Like it changes, but I know in the beginning like it was just I don't know, I think about like if somebody were to start a business and it's like they can't not think about, the business and what they're going to do and there's this excitement amidst like the rawness of the grief,
Yeah.
and my goal was never to grow it fast and furious, largely in part because one, I didn't know what I was doing. Two,
Right.
still 2 years after Ellie passed. And so the grief was still very real and I will say always will be real, right?
Yeah.
Like
Of course.
I don't believe grief ever goes away. I think we move through it. I will never say it gets easier. It changes. But I think it was just one foot in front of the other. We learned a lot along the way and had amazing people to lift us up. And, you know, yeah, so I don't know, just kind of beautiful mess. Like one step at a time. Don't know what I'm doing. Don't know what the future looks like. I would say too, like my mindset was as long as God keeps it moving forward, I'm here for it,
Yeah.
And over the years, there's a lot of moments where like, I don't know if we can keep doing this, and but then I'll get like little glimmers of hope or something will happen or somebody will come alongside the journey with us and it's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we're still doing this. So yeah.
I love that you called it a beautiful mess. And I think if we're honest, I think when we start anything, there's always a mess, right? And it's just kind of like yours in particular is very close to your heart, that's very emotional, very hard. Like I said, it's unimaginable. I also know that God gives us grace that we can't understand unless we need it. I've heard that before as well. When you when you said that it was something that you just couldn't stop thinking about, it was like you couldn't let it go. Do you think that do you think that pushed you through the hard moments?
I think so. Um, yeah, I mean, I think the hard moments can be so different, like they can vary in what they are, what they look like. I think initially the hard was just different than it is like at this stage in the organization because it was kind of like we were laying the foundation. Like our first full year was really like we didn't support a family our first year. It was literally laying the foundation of the organization, dotting our I's, crossing our T's. Like it was really and still is very important to me to steward the organization
Yeah.
well. It's not mine. It's as a nonprofit, that's the nature of what they are. It's not like your own business where you have different freedoms. So I don't know that I remember your question, but I feel like I'm leaning towards an answer.
You're answering it. You're good.
um, yeah, I think you asked like, is the not being able to do it, is that what pushed me through?
Yeah, so like when you had that, it was almost like a dog with a bone, right? Like you couldn't let it go. It was like it was just eating at you, and it's like if you didn't take action, almost like you were just going to explode. Like that's how it felt. Like that's how it feels for me. And I just wondered if that was what it was for you. Like if you didn't do something, you were just gonna. It was almost like going to make things worse, almost.
Yeah. I don't know that I would say like it's going to make things worse, but it definitely was like just something No, I don't know how to else to articulate, but like I couldn't not do it. Like I had to
Yeah.
temper myself. And
Yes.
for, I mean, I would say like the good part of the first 4 years, and like I would go to a store and just the ideas would come and I would get excited and I'm like, okay, we could put this in a box or we could do this in this way. And this would be something really cool to give to family. Like, so yeah, I mean, it's weird to say, but it was an excitement,
Yeah.
that I do think God gave me. And,
Yeah.
um, I think pushing through the hard times, like there's lots of doubts and questions that have come up along the journey. And it's like, okay, but is this what God's called me to do? And then, that was a journey in itself. Like, okay, I know I have this like internal thing that I cannot turn off. So then it's like, okay, is this God? Is this me? Is this me dealing with my grief?
Mhm.
Is it about me? Is it about the families? Like, so that's a whole journey, and
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work and some group cohorts and just identifying gifting and that sort of thing to really, I think, get confirmation, that yes, I think God's called me to this, but also to dig into the specifics of like, what is it about me and our story and how God's gifted me that makes me the right person to be in this role at this time, um, and really lead it. Like, that's just insane. Like, I still have days. I'm currently executive director, I'm founder. I'll always claim that. But it's like, who am I? Who am I
Wow.
to lead an organization? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Wow. That's incredible. I love and that is so beautiful because I think we see that example all throughout scripture. I mean, I know we do. We see it through all the famous, leaders in the Bible. And they're like, they give all the reasons why they shouldn't be the one, or like, there's obvious reasons why they shouldn't have been picked, right? And then he carries that through to now, just the fact that he picks us to to carry something so beautiful and to help others. It's just so humbling. And I think you said it perfectly. There's something in you. There's a willingness, there's a yes, there's a it's you bring your certain giftedness, your past, your experiences, your unique you-ness that no one else can bring, and that's all he wants. And it's so neat when we stop trying to fight it and we stop trying to understand it, and we just kind of let it happen. It's amazing what he does, and when you said that it was like you would have moments where you felt like I don't even think I should be doing this. I don't, or maybe you had moments of doubt, and then he would bring someone along that would encourage you and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's validation. Like, nope, keep going. You're not. I'm not telling you to step out of this yet. Like, keep going. That's beautiful. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind is like there was one person at a particular point in the journey where I remember saying to her, I was like, if you weren't here, I would I would be done. Like I wouldn't be able to do this. Like I would give up. And that was probably 3 years ago. And so no, I think you're absolutely right. Like it is validation, it's confirmation. It's if you hear my cat, he's 20.
He's 20. Oh my goodness.
I know.
Love it.
Yes. Um, yeah.
So, um, so I think we kind of already answered this, but I really want to, I really want to bring like light to it. Was it a slow culmination of figuring out that you were going to start an organization like this, or was it kind of like a lightning strike hit you? Like you knew that you were going to do something, but you just didn't really know what. Like, how did this kind of happen? I know you kind of said it took like a good solid year to get the groundwork done, but was it just kind of like an immediate thing you knew you had to take action?
I think I always knew, and I think my ex-husband and I always knew we knew we wanted good. I think the question, once she passed, amidst the most raw grief, in that first 2 years, the question was, what does that look like? And what's our role in the good that we think will come from her life? And I think so that was kind of a process that would, come in and come out and in that 2 years before we started the organization. But I mean, I know one thing, I think sometimes, so I used to be a kitchen and bath designer. And as
Oh,
I was picking out like tiles and cabinets and colors with people, sometimes the most powerful thing was knowing what they don't want. Like if they could look at a tile and be like, okay, I don't like that. Like, okay, that's helpful. And then you kind of go through this process of eliminating, and then you're like, okay, this is what I'm left with. I know that like I did not feel equipped and I wasn't equipped to start a nonprofit. So there's that. But I knew that like the medical research side of things was not something that was for me
yeah.
for a variety of reasons. And so, when we thought about the boxes and, gift packages that we provide, I think it was both tangible support and intangible in that, like, it was something physical that we could give to families that they could touch and see and feel. And, we say that through the boxes, we want to encourage bravery, inspire joy, and provide comfort.
Yeah.
They're there for a variety of reasons. So I think it just became like this is very practical um, and doable. Like it felt doable. There's a lot you can gift in a box.
Yeah.
And so, but I think as a nonprofit, you also have to be very careful not to try to do everything. And so that was definitely part of the journey too. It's like, okay, what is our mission? And our mission
Yeah.
is to provide boxes. And so how do we stay true to the mission? Because there were all these other, in the excitement and the ideas and all of that part of the journey where we had to identify our mission. We had to weed a lot out, right? It's like, okay, what are we not doing? And
Yeah.
so that really helped hone
Okay.
in. Okay, this is what we're doing. We're providing Brave boxes. And we over the years have been able to identify like different types of boxes. And so as we share, because people are like, well, what goes in a box? It's like, well, in some regards, what doesn't go in a box? So like we don't provide financial support, we don't pay bills and those sort of things. We don't write checks to families. But what we do is, in that regard, is we do provide expense Brave boxes. So, gift cards, things like that. If we could do a gift certificate to, one of the things I would love to do is counseling. Like if we could provide some sort of counseling support for families.
Yeah.
Um,
That'd be great.
yeah, so that's definitely on my heart and so needed for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think I,
I I love that you said it's not always what do we want to do, it's what we don't want. And that's a really good way to look at things. And in the beginning, I think for someone who's wanting to start a nonprofit, it's very daunting, right? And you already have like a servant's heart. So you see all the things that you could do. You see all the ways you could give or help or love on someone, and it can get very overwhelming and you can burn yourself out really quick. Speaking from experience. Uh, and I know that's true. And so really just staying in your lane, right? And staying in what God has called you to do and what you feel like he's placed on your heart. And in the future, as your organization grows, if he says, okay, now you can add this in, or now you can put this in, great. But in the beginning, you're so right. It's so good to stay focused on what you're supposed to do, what you're called to do. And for you, it's these love boxes, those Brave boxes. I'm sorry, I called it a love box, but it's a Brave box. It's beautiful because I think we can get so focused on, wanting them to be healed, and we forget that they're human and they just want to be loved on, and they need to feel normal. They need to feel like, they have some normalcy in the chaos. Is that kind of like the heart behind the box?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think some of the things that come to my mind as you were sharing were just the ugliness of the lack of curative options for some of these kiddos. Ellie had AML, acute myeloid leukemia, and um, So there's a huge problem in the medical community with being able to provide cures. And I won't get into that. I will say, like, it's, August 27th, we're going into Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in September. And that's where, as an organization, we do share more of the ugly truth behind childhood cancer and just some of the statistics and lack of funding for childhood cancer research. Um, so that's the whole thing. And I'm working hard to not get into that piece of it.
Yeah.
And trusting that what we're doing is what we're called to do. But yes, I mean, regardless of all of that, regardless of the outcome of what these kiddos' cancer journey ends up, and really the encouragement was Ellie and how she was so joyful through her journey. She was 2 through most of it. She had about my numbers are escaping me, but 14 months was her journey. She had 2 stem cell transplants in a year. So there were days definitely in parts of her journey that were really brutal, and her body was not in good shape. And up until the end, it was all because of the chemo, the radiation, like the things that were there to cure her and heal her were the very things that were causing the issues.
Yeah.
And so really just like when you were with Ellie in her journey, like there was just joy, and her middle name's Grace. And we thought about that for her older sister as a middle name. But that didn't end up being her sister's name, but God knew. I think that and I was just having this conversation yesterday, that there's grace in her age. There was grace for her not knowing like the depth of what she was going through, like her vocabulary became spaghettis for like the lines that she was connected to. Like it just was. She just
Yeah.
adapted in a way that I remember her like, not me. I wouldn't do that. I'd be grumpy. I'd be like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to be around me.
Right.
Um, so really, I mean, that's the heart of the inspiration for the organization. And just trying to bring that, like encouraging joy in the journey, which, um, yeah, we had a friend that did a bunch of hand lettered signs for us. And I was on her Facebook page one time and there was a sign that said joy in the journey. And I liked it. I think I just literally hit like on it. And then she messaged me and she was like, hey, do you like that sign? I was like, yeah, I do. And this was in the midst of Ellie's journey,
Okay.
while she was still fighting cancer. And she was like, well, I'd like to gift it to you, but I wanted to make sure it was meaningful to you, because she was like, if someone were to tell me when I was in your position, like if someone were, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but like to have joy in the journey, she's like, I'd want to
Yeah.
punch in the face.
Right. Right.
Which one, that was very validating for me. Like,
Yeah.
you're wrong. And also, I believe that that's what we're called to do. Like, we are called, and it says in the Bible, like, consider it pure joy.
Yeah.
Trials, like, really? Really?
It's hard to swallow when it's your child.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know how. Man, that was what a thoughtful friend to ask that question, to pause and ask that question. That's alone. That's really really thoughtful.
It taught me a lot. Like, it taught me a lot about, like, hey, just say what's real. Like, don't try to just be like, hey, you want this? Like, no, this is how it would make me feel. And that was so validating to me. And I think, showing up authentically, showing up like life, I look at life so differently now.
I
And
bet.
just stuff like that. It's like, let's just be real. Let's be thoughtful with our words, right? Like, that's important.
Yeah.
You have a list of things. I'm like, no, don't say this to somebody, or don't offer help in this way. Like, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I appreciated her realness.
Mm. Yeah, I think Yeah, I'm sure you could go into a whole list of things about things you do and don't say when someone's going through grieving or going through something like fighting childhood cancer. You know, that there's, I'm sure there's a whole list of things people say that they shouldn't, that I've heard some. It's just the things that we say and we don't even think through what they really probably mean to the other person. I can only imagine. So you kind of already answered this in a way. You said you spent you spent the first year laying the foundation, and was it the first 2 years, or was it a solid year and then y'all are kind of, because you said it was 2 years before you were up and running, right?
So we laid the foundation for about a year, and then we started providing our first boxes the second year.
The second year. Okay, cool. So in that, I'm hearing how important it is to really understand what you're doing, and to before you're just kind of jumping in and, head first, you're getting the groundwork. And I think so often we have a hard time waiting. We feel like this burning calling in our soul, right? And we want to do this. We're really excited. And then we don't want to wait and put in kind of all the work that needs to happen first. And sometimes it's a lot of work. I mean, a year is a long time. It may not have felt like a long time, but it's a long, I mean, it's a good amount of time to spend building an organization, getting everything set up in the background. Like, logistically, can you share some of the things that went into getting the organization kind of on its feet before it was even, truly public?
Yeah, I mean, this is always one of those things I'm like, okay, how broadly do I share this? But I think it's an illustration, so I'm going to be brave and share it.
Okay.
So we founded in January of 2019. We were our board members were spread throughout the Metroplex. It was really important for me to have all of our board meetings in person. This is January of 2019, before COVID. So we did that. I showed up to my very first board meeting with an 11-page agenda. At the time, I had no idea that was not suitable.
Well, I wouldn't know either.
Like, that's not how agendas work. They're like, they're one page typically, and so I like to laugh at it. I'm like, how honest do I want to be? Like, but I mean, that was how much I didn't understand and know, and also how much I had in my list of like, okay, first board meeting, like these are all the things we need to do.
Yeah.
Starting a website, building an email list, which account are we going to use? And as a nonprofit, there's a lot of resources out there that are free. Like Google, for example, you can get a Google business account for free.
Right.
And you don't always know that in the beginning. You don't know to ask those questions. And so like all of those tiny little decisions felt monumental, and then because I felt it was so important to steward the organization well, and also like part of my journey was feeling like I needed to get a yes to every little decision. I thought that's how it was supposed to go. And then over time I realized, okay, I don't have to have the board vote on every single decision. Like I can make some decisions too.
On your own.
There are the ones that are important that you need to vote on as a board. But so that really honestly slowed me down a lot, because it was like, okay, I need to have everybody say yes. And looking back, I'm like, there's so much more I could have done more quickly had I known, had I felt empowered to make some of those decisions. So yeah, I mean, that really affected the speed, which is fine. Like it's part of the journey, but it's also why I'm so passionate about like, if I can support other organizations, in the beginning of here are some tools and resources, like even just these are all things that are free. You can get Canva for free. You can get Google.
Yeah.
When you're beginning and you don't have the funds, it's like, how do we do this? How do I go to people in my very small network and say, hey, I need $200 to file our 501c3, things like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot to learn. But it's all
And
good.
it's great that we live in an age where we can just literally get on our phone and look up, like, how do you start a nonprofit? And then you just, like, 100 articles will pop up, and how do you start a nonprofit? These are the 5 things you should do before you start a nonprofit. And it is a learning process. I mean, I wouldn't have known either that maybe an 11-page agenda is too much, because, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh gosh, you have to have board members, and that's like a whole other thing because it's a nonprofit, and I never would have thought. So it's entering a different headspace. You have to put on a different mental cap to, like, okay, now I'm a CEO right now. These are the things I'm supposed to do. Or, I'm a nonprofit owner. This is what I'm supposed to do. It's not an easy, in the beginning, it's unnatural. It doesn't feel comfortable. I'm sure it felt very strange to do those kinds of things, but you learn. It's all about learning.
Yeah.
So what are, like, if you could recommend, like, if there was one thing you could tell someone, like your biggest suggestion, like, what would someone who was wanting to start their own nonprofit or a ministry or something, what would be like the one thing that you would tell them to do?
Gosh, that's hard. I mean, I think the first, I'm like, 2,
Yeah, 2 things.
seek God and build a team. I mean, I think you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, literally, you can't do it alone because you have to have 3 board members at least. So yeah, I mean, I think seeking God and finding the right team, and in finding the right team, making the expectations clear. I think that's a big part because we functioned, and at the time I didn't even know this was a thing, but like for the first, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years, we functioned as a working board. So it was 100% volunteer, but there's basically a spectrum of a working board all the way to a governing. And then you move along. So like we started where all of our board members literally built the website, like did all of the work to build the organization and start it. We didn't hire anybody to build a website or anything like that. So I think identifying the expectations, as you build your team, let them know, like, this is the type of board, and from the, funding piece of it, like, what is their role towards funding? A lot of organizations do a give or get, like they ask their board members to give or get a specific amount, and that's in their bylaws.
Okay.
So just clear expectations, I think, for sure.
That's, I think that tip, and seeking God always, yes. Keeping him first and at the heart of everything you do, because it's so easy to try to run ahead of God and get excited and try to, like, okay, yay, let's do this. And then you're like suddenly out of his will and out of his plan. And he's just like, okay, I guess I'm just going to wait for you to come back over here. He's had to do that with me. That's why I laugh. But the clear expectations, I think that goes across any board, the whole spectrum of, like, whether you're wanting to do ministry, nonprofit, starting your own business, clear expectations is so important, not only for the people that you're wanting to go into the business with, that they understand, like, your mission and your value and what's behind what you're doing. And this is what you can expect from the company and from my products and my services, but also with the people behind the scenes, like your family, like with your husband or your spouse or your kids, like if they're old enough, right? But this is what I'm doing, and this is what's going to be required of me. And some nights I have to work or I'm going to have to go do events. And that's important too, because if you don't have your family on board, to support you, I mean, that's really crucial and vital to have people that you love backing what you're doing, because that emotional support, that just knowing that they believe in what you're doing as well is really important, really valuable. And sometimes, at least for me, I can jump into something and get really excited and leave them in the dust in like a whirlwind of what is mom doing now? Like, or what are you doing now? Right? So
Right.
it's so important to slow down and like bring people with you and not just kind of drag them like behind you. Like, come on. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's something in itself for sure. I think the challenge too, I guess what I would add to that too is I think inviting open conversation and communication about that. I know
mhm.
I didn't do a good job of that. Like, I felt like I was running too fast. I was consumed with the excitement, the ideas, and all of
Yeah.
that. And I don't think I did a good job of inviting my family and those close to me to speak into, hey, like it's hard when this is all you think about and we go to a store as a family and like all you're
Mhm.
talking about are the boxes. And
Yeah.
there's an impact to your family members because of those things. And so I know I could have done a better job of, yes, setting the expectations for those that you love, your family, friends, but also just inviting like, hey, let's make sure we have intentional conversation about how this is affecting our family. uh,
Yeah.
so yeah.
That's really good. That's really good to share. So, what what are some of the biggest ways that people can support you right now? That people can support the Brave Like Ellie organization?
Yeah, I think we're at a stage in our organization where we have the operational side of things, so paying our team so that they can
Mhm.
do the work to continue to meet the, I don't want to say demands, and needs is even sometimes I struggle with, but like what we've identified in a year to support our families. I'll say it that way,
Yeah.
because we set annual goals. So as we've grown, really there's that whole side of things, like implementing the right team partners, financial people that we're paying to make sure we're stewarding money well. So there's that side, but then there's also always the Brave boxes, and those are intertwined because you can't have one without the other. And
Right.
so, I mean, funding is always big. That's always a great need. If there's somebody that has a heart for somebody that started a nonprofit that has, I think a lot of times, like people that have started a business and understand like
Yeah.
the cost that it requires, and all of the little things that add up. So I just kind of imagine, if there's people out there that have a heart for supporting funding in that area, that's a great need. And then really just growing our support network, I think would be helpful. We had a huge influx of families about a year ago, where we had, and these numbers may not be exactly right off the top of my head, but we had about 60 new families come in about a 2 month period.
Oh, wow.
And the year prior, we had 30 new families come in within a year's time span.
Wow.
So we're still feeling the weight of that. Like we still have families that from a year ago have not received the type of support, the number of boxes, the type of boxes that we set
Mhm.
out to provide. And so we're honestly at a point where we're having to pause, nominations for the rest of 2024 because we really feel like it's important to try to serve the families that we already have in our Brave Box program. And at this point, it's not even in the way that we set out to this year because we're just a few months towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, as a nonprofit, funding is always a thing.
Yeah.
Um, but also, I think just because we know we have a lot of families that have identified that they want to provide support from us, we want to be able to say yes to them. And, it may not look the way that we set out at the beginning of the year, but we have to always try to be creative in how we can still support them and shift and adjust. Um, so yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing. Like we have a good group of volunteers. Um, that's a little easier to find, if you will. But the funding is always an area that we could use support, especially right now.
So, how can people get in contact with you, and how can they, if they were wanting to sponsor a box or do those things, how would they do that?
Yeah, so we at any time, and we've kind of restructured this a little bit this year. We have several campaigns going. So, like right now, as an example, we're trying to fund 150 Brave boxes. So these would be Warrior Brave boxes. So when a warrior comes into our program, they're approved, they have an approved application, then we would send them this box initially. And so it's about $40 for this specific box. And
Okay.
so that's a very specific need, something that we're trying to do through the end of this month. Um, but also, when you go to our website, you can go to donate now and just donate, not allocated to any specific fund, or you can go to our campaigns page and see all the different fundraisers we have. Like, we have a
Okay.
fund for operational support. So people can be really intentional about looking at our current needs and what we're trying to do and allocate funds to that. So just going to our website, our social media is pretty active. So we're usually going to have, whatever campaign we're currently in and our goals on our Facebook and Instagram. So that's always a great, like, current place to go. Um,
Okay.
and then always our website for sure.
Okay. So I will make sure that I link in the description. I will put your website and I will also put your social media links. So the website is bravelikeellie.org,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And then you can click on the campaigns and you can sponsor or donate to a specific campaign or like a specific part of the organization. I feel like that gives people a lot of clarity, and I love the transparency there. I love that because that feels really good when you're on the other side and you are wanting to donate, where you can kind of pick and choose where you're sending the money. That does feel nice. Like I like that as a person who likes to give and stuff. That's cool. I love that.
Good.
Is there anything else that you would like to share before we end today?
I don't know. I think the only other thing is, like, there's hope. Um, I think that for me, um, I would say that, and it's been several years that I've, like, sought clarity on this, but I think that Satan was telling me not to start the organization. I think the very thing that I struggled with the most was what I would say is being the dark cloud, because, um, I think as a parent that has a kid with cancer, you know that your child can die, and some would say that's the worst case scenario. I, I don't know that that's true, and I won't say that now. But I think that um, the very thing that kept me from starting the organization, like being the dark cloud, being the antithesis of hope, I believe is the very thing that I am here to do, is to provide hope that even if this is where you end up with your child and their cancer, and that you're living here on earth without them, you know, that's in some ways hell, right? Like, there's a part of you that's gone. Um,
Yeah.
so I think my greatest hope is that I can be an encouragement that there is life on the other side of loss.
Mm.
There is joy. Um, you know, you can have um, graves turn into gardens. Like all these things that I would probably punch somebody in the face at some point in my journey. If there's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, you have beauty from ashes, I'm like, no, you can't say that for me. Like, I can say it, but I'm finally in a place where I do, like, I see, even if you help one person, that kind of mindset, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
And so I just the encouragement that there's hope. And to the parents that have kids grown or in the home, like, parenting is hard, like, regardless of your situation. Even if you have no medical challenges, like, and life is easy, it's hard. Like, it's a lot like marriage. I think it's one of the greatest gifts and also one of the greatest challenges. Like, you are responsible for taking care of a child and growing them in all the ways. And that's a heavy weight, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, one, what I would say to parents and anybody really, but especially parents, like your struggles are valid. Um,
Yes.
don't look at somebody else and say, well, they have it worse. I shouldn't be upset. I shouldn't this. So I think your struggle is valid. And also, I just lost the also. So right there,
It's okay.
struggle
Just
is
take a
valid.
minute.
Um, but just look at our situation and be encouraged. Um, yeah, I'm struggling to get it back, but be encouraged. And what I hope is acknowledging that your struggle as a parent is real and difficult. Also, shift your perspective. Like if you're in the midst of one of the hardest days with your kid and you just want to pull your hair out, just take a minute and think of me and how Ellie's not here with me. And I just would love to see a shift in perspective. That's really one of my greatest hopes.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. You vocalize just a lot of things that I are at the heart of my show. Like at the heart of what I, just reaching the one person that if nothing ever like comes of this and all I ever have is like 5 people that listen to this show, but the one person that really need to hear it, or if the thing that I'm struggling with and the thing that I'm going through can get someone across the bridge with me and help them, if I clear a path so someone else can just walk it, oh, that's so huge. Like someone can see and look at you and your family and see that on the other side of loss, that you can have a normal life. You can have a life of joy and hope and love and happiness. It just looks a little different some days. It's really hard. And yet your life doesn't end. It still goes on. You still can have a rewarding and a fulfilling life. I think that is so powerful. So, so powerful. Thank you. You are such an encouragement, and I know that God is doing some wonderful things, and I can't wait to see where he takes the organization, where he takes Brave Like Ellie, because I know he's got wonderful things planned for y'all. It's just so beautiful.
So I want to take a minute, and I know we don't even know each other that well. I love that.
Yes, I know. It was so cool.
But I just want to say I'm proud of you. As I shared with you before the call, like I'm in a season of trying to stretch and be more intentional about sharing my story and also inviting our families to share theirs for those that's important to. But you are forging a path. Just having this opportunity for me to do the hard thing, the thing that I'm like, okay, I've known for a while, I need to do this, but that's a whole talk in itself. Like it's not about me. That was in my mind, but it's not about me, and it requires me to go first. And so I thank you for going first. And I know you've impacted more than one already. So thank you for that. And yeah, it's been an honor.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Okay. So good. This is so good. It's such an honor to have you today. Thank you so much. I look forward to staying in connection and just seeing how things, sorry, I'm like all I'm a mess now. I look forward to seeing what God does in your organization. And I will post in the description the links to Brave Like Ellie and their social media account. Please go check them out. If you feel led, please consider donating to them or doing a Brave box. If y'all have any prayer requests, please feel free to email me at OneCalledMama@gmail.com. I know this is a really heavy topic, and for some of you it's really difficult. And so if we can join you in prayer, we would be honored to do so. So please feel free. Thank you everyone so much for being here today. Thank you, Jennifer. And I hope you all have a very blessed week. See you soon.